Most people think the hardest part of running for office is winning the election. For independent candidates, it's not. The hardest part is getting on the ballot at all. In Arizona, Hugh Lytle has had to fight 2 lawsuits, one reaching to the state Supreme Court, just to have his name on a primary ballot. He won. In Texas, Mike Collier is in federal court right now, asking a judge to declare that Texas's ballot access system is unconstitutional because the bar for an independent candidate is so high that no one has ever cleared it in a race with a runoff. These aren't just campaign stories. They're stories about whether the rules of American democracy are fair and who wrote them and why. Today, Jackie Salit, who has spent 30 years fighting these battles, is asking both of them how they got here, what they found when they got here, and what they want to do about it. Lieutenant Governor Healey, Governor Whitman, and I are thrilled to welcome to the Forward Party podcast, Forward Party board member and one of the nation's leading experts on the independent voter and ballot access, Jackie Salit. Welcome, Jackie.
Hi, Lindsey. Great to see you all. Can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you. So no one is better equipped to interview Mike and Hugh to learn about what's going on in Texas and Arizona than you, Jackie. So I was not even going to pretend. I handed it over to the experts today. So for our listeners, thank you so much, Jackie, for navigating today's conversation.
Oh, well, thank you for the opportunity, Lindsey, and great to see you all, Lieutenant Governor Healey, Governor Whitman, and of course, our wonderful CEO, Lindsey. This is such an important subject, and I'm so glad that we're shining a light on it today. And look, here's the deal. Ballot access, how you get on the ballot, this is an issue that most people, reasonably enough, think is just a technicality. You just fill out some paperwork, get a couple signatures, bring it down to the Board of Elections, and there you have it. You're on the ballot, and you have a chance to put yourself and your issues in front of the voters. The truth of the matter, though, the real story is that the ballot access process has been highly engineered by the legacy parties, specifically with the purpose to limit competition and to make it really as absolutely difficult as is humanly possible to put an independent candidate on the ballot and to give the voters a new option, a new way to think about problems and solutions, and frankly, an independent form of leadership that puts the interests of the voters and the country ahead of the interests of a particular political party. So that's what we're going to get into today. So I'm really looking forward to having this discussion because the 2 guests that we have with us today, Hugh Lytle and Mike Collier, are on the front lines of this in Arizona and Texas, respectively. So I'm really looking forward to getting into the meat of this. So I want to start by asking Hugh Lytle to join us. Hugh is running for governor of the great state of Arizona, where I am a resident and a registered voter. So Hugh, welcome to the podcast, and let's get into our conversation here.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jackie.
And by the way, it's great to see you. Wow, you're out there talking to voters and bringing a message and shaking up the race, obviously. So that's really cool. So let me just kind of take you back to the beginning of the process. So not a politician. You're an entrepreneur. You've done some amazing work in the healthcare field. You've done that for 3 decades, and you're someone who moved to Arizona 30 years ago, fell in love with the state, and then began to really wrap yourself around the problems that so many people in the state are facing. And so you've devoted many, many years to creating new approaches and new solutions. So then you decide, okay, done that. Now I want to take up the cause on the policy side and on the governance side. So you talk with friends and family and you say, all right, I'm going to jump in here. I want to run for governor, and I want to run as an independent because that's who I am and that's what I believe in. So then somebody sat you down and said, here's what it's going to look like. So can you take us back? Like, what was that like for you when you actually had to see what the access process was like? What did that look like? What did it feel like? What is it? And how did that play for you?
Well, Jackie, there were so many things you have to take into account when you're a non-politician, not overly familiar with the process to begin with, and then running as an independent. There's so many things you have to take into account. And, probably first and foremost was, outside of just who will work with an independent, just trying to get a team assembled became very quickly, okay, how are we going to get on the ballot? And I thought, well, that's an odd question. What do you mean? We just go out and get our signatures like everybody else. I knew about the previous legislation, or, the way Arizona had set this up, where you needed 5,000 signatures for a Republican, 5,000 for a Democrat, 45,000 for an independent. I knew that was ludicrous and not really something that's achievable now that I've gone through the signature process. So that lit a fire in me. Ultimately, that's the kind of person that I am. I'm rebellious to that end. I don't like unfair or things that are not just. And it's another one of the reasons why I know I have right on my side as I go out and take on this endeavor. But ultimately, it came down to, we have a party in Arizona called No Labels Arizona, or the Arizona Independent Party. And that provided fair ballot access. So that was a huge reason to say, okay, I'm willing to step in here. But it was made very clear up front that these signatures will be challenged. The way they were challenged, though, I thought was interesting. It wasn't.
Tell us more about that. What happened?
Yeah, so it wasn't. It was really through. So in the earlier prologue, Lindsey talked about I've been sued twice. I've really been arguably sued 4 times. I mean, through a Democratic operative, they work through operatives in this work. It's never direct from the governor's office, but they funded the legal bills, because these are very expensive legal bills to defend. I just paid mine recently, so I know that. And they funded my primary challenger to challenge my signature. So I needed 2,000. I got 6,000. And, the judge was about, 30 minutes in and was like, I'm at 5,000 and going up. So this is baloney, and kicked it out of court. But these are the kinds of things, right, that were surprising to me. And by the way, I didn't challenge my competitor. And the reason I didn't do that is I believe in the election system. I'm the best person available for the job. If my primary candidate's better than me, then she should be elected. And I would gladly step aside. I just think that that's the way government should work. So that was a big one right off the bat. On top of, as you're probably well aware of, the other one that doesn't make the register is, going after the name, the Arizona Independent Party, which we tried to change, which they came after, called a special session of the legislature to build it into the Constitution that you could never use the name independent in your name. Now, why on earth would that be, right? So, early on was out in front of the Capitol fighting the good fight and explaining why, we've got water crisis, we've got an education crisis, and we're worried about what, 45,000 people out of 4.4 million voters call their party name. So these are the kinds of things that are just examples of, the early challenge to getting on the ballot.
Yeah, well, I guess that's like a quick education there. You get your sort of trial by fire. Now you see how it really works. I had the opportunity actually to be an observer in the court case on the Arizona Independent Party name change. As you referenced, and one of my favorite moments was testimony that was supplied by a leader of the Democratic Party, where they complained to the court that if we were allowed to use the word independent in the name of the Arizona Independent Party, that the Democrats would have to work harder in order to win independent voters. So I'm like,
well, and I've heard,
okay,
Jackie,
they're not even covering it up here.
And Jackie, I heard from a Democratic consultant that the independents are there to moderate the two parties. So in essence, our vote doesn't count. We're there to create moderation for the parties. But look, at the end of the day, they wrote the rules. They benefit from the rules, and they ultimately defend the rules. And so if you're going in as an independent candidate, you got to be prepared to take that on.
Yeah, let me ask you about actually the petitioning process itself, because my experience, as Lindsey mentioned, I've been involved in the independent political movement for more than 30 years and involved in many, many campaigns where, candidates and supporters had to go out to voters and ask them to sign a petition that allows them to run. And in my experience, the American people in many, many different states and walks of life are very broad-minded about that. They want there to be greater competition. They want there to be more choices on the ballot. And people are often excited and happy to sign a petition that allows that, whether they are going to support that candidate or not. They're so responsive to the idea of a more inclusive political democratic process. So then the contrast between that, what people are like on the ground, as it were, and then what the rules are like and the courts and all of that is so extreme. But what was that like just asking ordinary Arizonans to sign your petition?
So it was so a couple of things. And first of all, the process itself is much more challenging than I would thought. Just if you think of your own Rolodex of people, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have them sign up because they believe in me. How many people do you get to, really? 1,000's a lot of people, right? Just to begin with, that to be able to do, to be able to engage. Then we have and again, this isn't to scare off. We need more citizen leaders, more people to be willing to lean in and do this. I'm just trying to be helpful as they think of what they have to take on there. A big challenge for us was also you have to leave your Republican or Democratic Party. You cannot sign our petition if you're a Republican or Democrat. That means I have to sign up for a party I've never heard of called the Arizona Independent Party, which I think I just saw something in the news about them being sued at the Capitol building. Like, what's going on there? I have to sign that. And that process of signing over there is clunky on top of that. Okay, so I've got to change my voter registration. If you go to the voter registration site, which is the Department of Motor Vehicles in Arizona, you will not see, because the governor did not want to allow Arizona Independent Party, even though the Secretary of State approved it, you would not find that party on the list to choose. So now you have to explain another level of complexity, which is, okay, you're going to have to sign for Arizona No Labels. I know that we're calling ourselves Arizona Independent Party, but sign up for Arizona No Labels. Now get your official confirmation. Now that signature can count. Okay, so we added a whole nother layer of complexity by doing that name change at that time. So getting the signature counts were huge. So we did door to door. We did neighborhood walks, all that. But you're not going to get there doing just that. We have to hire. There's companies that are helpful in doing this. They set up at grocery stores. They engage, but their hit rate is, the same issues I just explained. Someone that's a Democrat will sign the petition, and then later we have to kick it out and say that doesn't count. So an incredibly inefficient process to be able to get that done, which is why we felt like we needed 2/3 to basically doubling our count more to be able to be competitive when they started kind of breaking down what is a valid signature to count on this ballot. So A lot of work in these early days to establish that. That won't be as much of a problem going forward, but certainly in my candidacy.
Yeah. Well, look, I know you have to go, and I really want to thank you for taking the time here. To me, it's so important that what you're talking about now to the people of Arizona is both the issues that concern you, the problems, and the kinds of solutions that we can bring about. And you're also linking that to the rules that govern the political process itself. Those things are really connected, and that's so important. And it's really only independents who are willing to talk about that and to educate the public about that and to bring about the kinds of changes that we need in the rules of the game, so to speak. So, Hugh, I can't thank you enough for all you're doing, both for the people of Arizona and for the democratic process. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And trust me, the message is resonating. People are excited to engage outside the system. So appreciate the time today.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, I hope you'll come back soon and give us updates on how it's all going.
Sure will. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care. Well, many thanks to Hugh for letting us in on some of the drama in Arizona. Now we're going to move to another state that has its own drama. Seems like it always does in Texas. And we have a wonderful opportunity now to chat with Mike Collier, who's running for Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Texas in the midst of petition battles, court battles of great importance. And so I really am thrilled that we're going to have the opportunity to unpackage some of that together and let the public know more about what's at stake here. So, Mike, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Let me start with this, Mike, because I want to help people get oriented now to the circumstances that you're facing there. So I know that you professionally have, for your career, been an accountant and auditor. So as we like to say at the Forward Party, you're a numbers guy.
Right.
So Andrew Yang, always one of our founders, always says, I'm a numbers guy and all of
Right.
that. So you're a numbers guy. So at what point did you first get a look at the numbers that are required on a ballot access petition to run for statewide office as an independent? And what did you think when you saw those numbers?
Well, I think it's a wonderful question, and I'm just delighted to be here with you all. So I made the decision to run as an independent before I knew anything about what it would take, because I'm doing this out of principle. I think it's very important. I think our two-party system is broken. My personal opinion is more independents and third-party candidates, more choices, is how we're going to solve this problem. So I made the decision in my own mind and heart to do this. And then I went to the election code and saw that I needed 81,030 signatures. And I thought, well, that's a lot, but I have campaigned before in Texas. It's a big state. And I've had millions of people vote for me. So the magnitude wasn't that overwhelming. So I signed the document. Let's go. Let's do this. I did talk to a number of people who had considered running for statewide office, prominent people, who said to me, Mike, can't be done. Don't tell me it can't be done. The way I respond to that is I'm doing it.
Right.
But as we got closer to the time to begin to gather signatures, and I was organizing a volunteer effort, raising money because you have to hire people to go do this, and really studied the particulars of rounding up these signatures, and I discovered a handful of things. One, it has to be a face-to-face human personal interaction, can't be done electronically or online. Second, you can't ask people who voted in the primary in Texas to sign your petition, which means you're going to people who are just generally not interested in the first instance in politics. Second, you have to read a statement to them, which takes time. Then you have to gather information, write it down on a piece of paper, which is still done in the world. You can't believe it, on pen and paper. Then you have to go look them up, each one, to make sure that they are on the voter rolls. And then you have to notarize your submissions. And I thought, well, that's a pretty tall order. How much time do I have to do this? Well, If there's just a primary and no runoff, I've got 115 days. And if there's a runoff, I have 30. And that's when I realized we have a fighting shot if we have the full period. I wonder whether it can be done in 30 days. And we had a runoff, so we had 30 days. Now, what led to the litigation is it was clear to me that the only way to achieve that was to hire a firm that would do it. I call them kids on skateboards. But we did ultimately hire a firm, and I have skated around with them, not literally, to see how they do it. But we started rounding up bids, and the price was off the charts. I couldn't believe my eyes. I concluded that it would cost between $2 and $3 million to round up these signatures.
Yeah.
I spoke to others, and they said, just to get on the ballot. And I spoke to others who said, Mike, they will tell you 2 to 3 million, and they'll call you at the halfway point and tell you it's more like 5 million.
Right.
And by the way, in a 30-day period, halfway is 15 days.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, Jackie, I began to worry about execution risk. If I'm going to have a lot of people give me money and I come up one signature short, or there's a technical problem, and with 30 days, I mean, I've managed large projects. With 30 days, there's execution risk. I said to myself, do I really have to do this? I better know these rules chapter and verse, and that's when I read the Texas Constitution, which says nothing about signatures. And I Googled and I said, has anybody challenged the legality of this? And what I discovered was yes. There had been a lawsuit in Texas, in federal district court, and a federal district court ruled that this was not constitutional. Now, why isn't anybody talking about this? So I tracked down the attorneys who led that suit, told them my story, and they came back and said, Mike, it was thrown out by the Fifth Circuit on technical grounds, which I can't get into the details now, nor am I qualified to.
Sure.
But those technical reasons 4 years ago, we believe, do not exist presently. And so the Center for Competitive Democracy, Oliver Hall, is the lead counsel. A&O Sherman, which is a big national powerhouse law firm, is supporting him, all pro bono, because they believe that we can win. And that's why they're doing it. And I believe we can too. Yeah. So that, a bit of a lengthy explanation, Jackie. Thank you for indulging me. But that sort of sets the stage for the rest of this conversation.
No, well, I mean, I really appreciate it. And I have to say, you know, as someone, I've been involved in many, many campaigns, including several independent presidential campaigns that, of course, brought us into Texas. But I have never seen this rule before that shortens the petitioning period based on an occurrence that comes out of what's happening with the major parties. So in other words, the entire process is designed to make room for them and for no one else. And it is so graphic in the Texas situation. And, you know, I'm so impressed and I'm so thrilled and have very high expectations about the litigation that you're pursuing now. And it has ramifications well beyond the state of Texas. Can you talk to us a little bit about, I heard you speak some about how you're thinking about possible outcomes here and how you will, you know, kind of position yourself relative to that. Can you give our
yeah, certainly. That'd be, well, it's obviously something I think about quite a lot every moment of every day. As a numbers guy, I sometimes don't understand how lawyers get to the decisions that they get to. So I can't prejudge the outcome. And my counsel is very, very good about managing my expectations, and I'm managing the expectations of everybody around me. I will say this, our number one objective with this lawsuit is to finally have a federal court rule that what Texas requires of an independent or third party is unconstitutional. Now, here's what I learned about the interplay between the Constitution and Texas election law. Now, the First and 14th Amendment of the Constitution say that I can run for office. I have a constitutional right to run for office, just as Texans have a constitutional right to vote for me, if they wish. There's no legislature can stand in that way. This is protected by the United States Constitution. That's sacrosanct. Now, the courts have ruled that legislatures can require prospective candidates to round up signatures and do some other things, provided they're doing it, this state interest served, and the reason why courts have agreed to this is because you want ballot integrity. And I accept that. You don't want a ballot that's too long. You don't want a ballot that's too confusing. Particularly, you don't want frivolous candidates. But requiring a candidate to round up 82,000 signatures in 30 days, pen and paper, all the things that we discussed, is really just absolutely unacceptable. And what I want the court to rule in the first instance is that this law is unconstitutional, and I want them to send it back to the legislature to fix it. Now, I hope to be lieutenant governor when they do, and I'll work on fixing it. Because what we have to achieve is that our democracy is failing. I think everyone knows that. And if we think we're going to fix our democracy by changing the United States Constitution, I think that's not going to happen. But if we can have more choices on the ballot, particularly candidates who can represent the majority of us, or nearly the majority, are now independent and don't think of themselves as either Democrats or Republicans. That's solution. So the primary objective, from my personal point of view, is to knock down this law. And I said this to many people. If anybody can get over this burden, I can do it. And if I can't, then we're going to take the burden down. So that's the first order of business. Now, will that influence my campaign? I don't know, because that's a second decision. The courts will have to. Here's what I hope. I'll be very honest with you. And this is where logic takes me.
Yeah.
But I'm not an attorney, so I would like for the court, and I believe that the court will say that this law is unconstitutional. It should be redone. In the first instance, and since the Secretary of State cannot use an unconstitutional law as a pretext for keeping poor old Mike Collier off the ballot, and they'll put me on the ballot and let me run. I'd like to say one more thing.
Sure.
This number, 82,000, it's really linked to how many people turn out to vote for governor. So it's 82,000 now because the last governor election was 8.2 million voters. We're going to have, we'll see, but I think we're going to have a huge turnout.
Yes.
10 million. So the number goes up to 100,000. Now, look at this from the perspective of somebody who might wish to run 4 years from now, or from the Forward Party, who wants ballot access in Texas. And I'd love to see Forward Party have ballot access to Texas. Now we're talking about 100,000. We don't do anything here. We're talking about 100,000. And so it's absolutely, it is. I don't want to define the legislature's intent. And I don't want to sound conspiratorial and cynical. Whether they intended to keep independents and other parties off the ballot, I don't want to judge. But I know it has that effect. There's no doubt that it has that effect.
Sure. Yeah. Well, de facto is a fact. So there you have it.
As far as I'm concerned.
Hey, I know that one of the really beautiful things about the litigation here is the coalition of plaintiffs that have joined you in the case, because I've read the legal papers and they're great. And I've looked at that grouping of plaintiffs, and they, in my mind, are expressive of the coming together of a new kind of coalition in American politics, because they span the spectrum politically. Former elected officials, prominent citizens of Dallas, people who've been involved in the reform movement there for a very long time. And that's very unusual to see that come together in that way. So could you talk about that coalition and how you put that together, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I share your point of view. I couldn't be happier that this group of co-plaintiffs joined the lawsuit. When the attorney said to me, Mike, okay, when we get this thing organized, we want co-plaintiffs. We want you as the plaintiff, because your constitutional rights are being denied as someone who seeks to be on the ballot. We'd like to have co-plaintiffs whose constitutional rights are denied because they'd like to vote for you. And I asked, well, who should I get? And the attorney said, well, just, friends and neighbors and family and campaign staff. But I went out and I rounded up folks who had supported me in previous campaigns, whose names would be widely recognized. And we limited it to, there's 14 folks, but we have 4 recently retired, very prominent Republicans. Now when I ran in the past, I ran as a Democrat. Right. But I've always run to the center. I am an accountant, for goodness sake. I represent that middle point of view, which is most of us. But it's a recently retired state senator, a recently retired state representative, 2 recently retired U.S. congressmen, and a woman who joined who's an active, presently serving as a district attorney out in West Texas in a very important series of counties. I also have a former United States ambassador who's well known in Democratic circles. I have Linda Curtis, who is the matriarch of the League of Independent Voters in Texas, very, very well known.
He sure is.
Two faith leaders, very well known, Bishop Murray in the Black community, and Reverend Charles Foster, who leads the Pastors for Texas Children. And then there are the three that are associated with the Forward Party. They're participating in their personal capacity, but we're quite pleased to have them, and we're quite pleased to show the world that the Forward Party is behind this as well. So it's and hats off. I got to mention Brandon David, who's the chairman of the Forward Party in Texas, who's putting an enormous amount of time and energy and talent and intellect into this effort, into the lawsuit, into my campaign. I just can't imagine doing this without him.
Yeah. Well, credit to you. I mean, Mike, you're showing so much courage and so much integrity, and those two qualities are hard to come by in American politics today. So it's really inspiring, and
you.
Best of luck to you. Keep us posted on how
Jackie.
the litigation is going and how the campaign unfolds. And
Will do.
Thank you so much for all you do for our country.
Well, certainly. Well, thank you very much for all y'all's help. Let's stay on this till we get the job done.
Thanks to you. Thanks to Hugh. Thanks to Lindsey, Governor Whitman, and Lieutenant Governor Healey for allowing me to step in as a guest host here. It's really been fun. I hope they ask me to come back again and do it again. And all of you listening and watching out there, you all take good care. Okay? So long.